We are shifting to energetically conscious beings. And what I'm most excited about globally is the awakening of consciousness, the awakening of humanity, and the evolution of consciousness and the expansion of consciousness.
How your team has envisioned the new paradigm that is coming through for humanity and what you've received from there.
What are humans choosing now? Understand that humans overall are choosing change. Overall, as a collective, humans are aware that they are disproportionately dissatisfied overall with the state of their experiences.
What do you foresee are going to be the teachings that the future generations will have for the progression of consciousness?
What is part of the plan is an organic completion of the experiences of this old paradigm. And as that completion happens, fewer beings who have progressed will choose to come back to this earthly reality.
Lori Spagna, welcome on Just Tap In. What are you most excited about right now globally and in your life?
Wow. Well, first, thank you for having me, Emilio. And what I'm most excited about globally is the awakening of consciousness, the awakening of humanity, and the evolution of consciousness and the expansion of consciousness. I'm so excited and really optimistic for humanity's evolution and how that transformation is not only accelerated, but really well underway. And on a personal level, what I'm most excited about is I am relocating and on the road and traveling. That's been kind of a theme for a big part of my life, but it's really fun traveling and visiting different places and tuning into the energy, the vibe of the places, the land, the people. So I'm enjoying that, and I'm looking forward to finding my next right place and anchoring in some roots in a right place for me.
Yeah, and I also know that people that are working with that light and carry so many codes, they're getting pulled into a lot of different places that need anchoring in that grid system of the earth. And you mentioned the awakening of humanity. I'm curious to know why you feel that this window of time in specific is so significant for this evolution that you talked about.
Well, part of why it's so significant is because humanity is choosing it. Like, it doesn't take 7.5 or 8 billion people to choose it. It takes enough conscious beings who can be the frequency, the vibratory state of free will choice in alignment with the will of the divine to choose it and to be that frequency as conscious co-creators, right? So this is really one of the things that I love is the agenda of the light. A lot of people really don't understand there is an agenda of the light, and very often people tend to confuse this concept of the light and the dark with good and evil, and that's not what it is. The agenda of the light, the way I define it and the way it's been taught to me through my team, is the plan for lighted creation, which we're all part of that. So the agenda of the light is for humanity to progress, evolve, up-level, expand into more union with Source, Creator, God, the divine, Spirit, and to do that in a conscious way. That agenda is happening, and the timing for that is now and into, it's going to continue to intensify over the coming years. So the timing of how it rolls out, that's part of the free will engagement, but that is real. That is not. And so when people don't really understand the agenda of the light, they don't understand that God's will, I'm using the word God, but you can use, Source, Creator, the infinite, the all that is that will is underway. That plan for lighted creation, which is the agenda of the light, is happening. Yeah. And it's affecting us all. So that to me is really exciting.
Yeah. And I almost feel that that agenda of light is deeply intertwined with the agenda of Earth itself, or Gaia, the being of Earth. And, you know, the team that you referred to, you call them the collective. Mm-hmm. They've said before that Earth herself will not allow certain beings back to her physical reality. So there I wanted to ask you, like, what kind of energies are no longer compatible with that next evolution of the planet herself that we're in the midst of right now?
Yeah. Well, because Mother Earth, as you know, and you just stated, is a free will choice. She has free will choice too. And we refer to her as feminine energy, right? But her will is to heal her body, which is the Earth, Gaia. So in her desire to up level and to be part of God's plan of lighted creation, to heal her own self, what that means is frequencies and vibrations that are not in harmony with her healing are basically either having to transmute, that's part of our change, or exit this reality in an organic way. Not necessarily, doesn't mean mass extinctions. It means like physically completing that lifespan. And so those beings who transition out, that those old energies, they won't be able to come back to Earth as we know it. They'll be redistributed through other mutually harmonious realities on, either other planetary bodies. But in those other distributions, wherever they go, those distributions, they come back into reality that will also allow them to continue to grow and expand. But it might be somewhere where there's more density that requires that. Earth's density is elevating. Earth's, in other words, less density, less heaviness, more lightness. So if someone's not compatible with that, they won't re-inhabit here. Does that reincarnate, re-inhabit as conscious beings? Because that's the direction for Earth. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And if it's becoming less dense, I'm curious to know, rather than just the frequency, also what sort of qualities will be able to be required for a soul to continue on this new Earth timeline that we're going into as she evolves as well, and what she's also letting in at this time or moving forward?
Well, one of the most important things that I understand, as I understand it, is that we are shifting to energetically conscious beings. So when you talk about the qualities, there's two things that light up. One is just your basic divine virtues, right? Divine virtues. And we know what those are, right? The virtues in the old paradigm that is becoming like energetically extinguishing are virtues of, greed and arrogance, male dominant supremacy, whatever that, patriarchal system, control, domination, manipulation, secrecy, coercion, all of that stuff is being exposed because it's no longer supported, right? That's why people are becoming aware of this and seeing it in glaringly obvious ways that we never saw before. So as it comes to the light and is exposed, that's the part of the process of healing and resolving and choosing new, right? The virtues of the new paradigm that are part of the energies that we're speaking of here are, those virtues of that are more aligned with the divine, divine inspiration, divine gratitude, loving kindness, divine forgiveness, divine understanding, divine peace, divine joy, divine grace. Those virtuous qualities are ways that not only that we start to behave in accordance with that, but we start to embody those frequencies as energy. That's energy work, right? Because one can be kind. You can go into let's just use an example. One can be kind to someone they know and then be unkind to someone they don't know, right? But when you embody the energetics that are associated with divine kindness or loving kindness, you just are that. You are being those frequencies. So to go back to your question, when we ask, what are the energies that we're not anymore, those old paradigm energies, and what are the energies we're becoming. Like, it's embodying these virtues and then being them. And then the other thing is the language of energy is more and more going to be the truth of who we are, because people are becoming more and more energetically sensitive and energetically aware. And we're recognizing that in order to live in our ideal and optimal way, and in accordance with our most benevolent best, we must be compatible with the energies we desire. So we're learning, like, this energy doesn't feel so good. This energy does feel good. But in order for me to be more harmonious with what I like and enjoy, not only do I have to be my frequency and embody those energies, but I also have to be able to distinguish and discern and navigate, right? Because I can't reject an energy and then assume that I can be the energy I want by rejecting something I don't like. Is this making sense? If we identify an energy that we don't like, this happens all the time with empaths and supersensitives. We'll be like, oh, this energy does not feel good to me. I don't want it. But what that does is that puts people in a state of polarity, push, pull. What we're elevating into is, beyond even unity, is plurality, which is where we recognize all that is without really judging it necessarily, and then free will consciously choosing the vibratory state that we enjoy the most, that we most resonate. This is why when people talk about raising their vibration, they only have part of the picture. Why? Because the idea of raising your vibration is what elevates you. It's important for sure. But even as you're raising your vibration, you're still determining, this energy feels good, this energy doesn't feel good, this energy feels right, this energy doesn't feel right. You have to find really what's really true is your core frequency, which is the energetic space that you embody, that is where you're most aligned with the divinity within you, right? And then as you do that, then you're recognizing, oh, all of these other energies are there. This is plurality. All of these things exist, but here's my core frequency, where I am at one with my source, and I see, recognize, and acknowledge all that is as well. It's beyond duality. It's plurality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and to go even deeper into the core frequency, there may be many ways to identify what that is within us. What have you found the best way to align with that core frequency, identify it first, become aware of it, and then really live it, embody it, share it with the people around us, and draw in others that may be in resonance with that core frequency?
Yeah. Core frequency is cultivated and developed from within. It's a practice. It's not something that can be learned through the brain. It's something that one develops and cultivates from within. And when one is in their core frequency, and core frequencies can change, it's where they will feel, and I'm not talking about emotions, feeling, I'm talking about energetic sensation of being, that they will feel better than good. Better than good. And why do I say it that way? Because look, you can feel joyful, and joy can be your core frequency, but it's unlikely that you will always be the vibratory state of divine joy. You can be divine inspiration, but in this reality, and even as the reality evolves, it's unlikely that you will always be the energetic frequency of divine inspiration. You can be divine love. But in this reality, and even as if the reality evolves, as we continue to evolve, it's unlikely you will always be the frequency of divine love, because this reality is filled with all different energies, frequencies, and vibrations that are in a state of flux and flow as through our experience. So therefore, your frequency isn't necessarily defined by any one frequency. Your frequency is going to be defined by the energies you learn to, not through the brain, but through direct experience, learn to embody and cultivate, replenish, renew, rejuvenate, reinvigorate yourself with. And by cultivating those energies, bringing them into and through the body, and anchoring them from within energetically, even though you are more than the body, you are not limited to the body. You're experiencing yourself and life through the body, right? But you begin to become not only the energetic embodiment of those energies, and they all sort of infuse together to become your core frequency. So you feel better than good. And you become energetically so stable within your frequency bandwidth so that when someone maybe brings another energy around you, it doesn't necessarily upset you or bother you. It's more like you notice it, and then you can either call in more of your own energy, reactivate, re-amplify, re-energize it, infuse it. You can even expand it around you to such a degree that you understand you're just being in your energetic space. All of this is what's lying ahead for us because, of course, most humans are just beginning to get a sense of this, right? Of what it means and how to do it. But it's within all of us, right?
Mm. Yeah, and along those lines, I'm going to read a quote from the collective that you channeled that were talking about this frequency. And they said, "The expansion of consciousness will be where all humans and animals recognize frequency and vibration within themselves, our core frequency, and align with that which they choose in a conscious way." So what I'm seeing is that core frequency that we inhabit and we embody will then determine in a conscious way where we're headed in our life path, in our timeline, and different things that we will draw in and create and co-create with the universe while in physical form. So when it comes to creating these timelines from our energetic frequency, how do we start collapsing those timelines that are not of our highest potential or alignment, or that don't serve us in any way?
Okay, so here's the thing. First, let's this is going to possibly come through with the collective, but let's just make this clear. Everything in this reality, as we understand it, as we know it, as humans, starting to come through, but everything is energetic. There is a space of consciousness that is even beyond energy. Understand this, for ultimately all there is consciousness. Consciousness includes energy and yet is beyond energy. In terms of consciousness is all that is. You are consciousness, all beings are consciousness. Understanding themselves as individualized aspects, however they identify and define themselves, both consciously and unconsciously. Oftentimes this is referred to as the ego. Nonetheless, however you define it, it is the version or the interpretation of one's own self through the lens of their perspective and through the various energetic frequencies that they embody. So therefore, when one is choosing frequencies, energies, and vibrations, they must understand that all they are is energy and consciousness, all vibration, all things that they define themselves out as, all the ways that one defines themselves as, is simply forms of energy and vibration. Therefore, including, for example, one's emotions. Therefore, as one chooses energy and recognizes that energy is simply something that they identified as in the past, for example, anger. They may be angry or feeling angry or upset or bothered or irritated. All of these things are energy. They may identify as inspired or uplifted. However they identify, happy or grateful, these are energies. And so therefore, as one becomes more and more consciously aware that these are simply energies, they have the capacity, as all beings do, to simply allow energy to shift and change and to utilize energy in a conscious way to transform the energetic experience that they have and embody to level up to a frequency of energy that is more to their liking. You see? What is required first is the recognition that you, any individual, is not the definition or cannot be defined by the energy that they have been, or by the labels that they have been given, or by the ways they have conformed to based on everything they have believed or perceived up until any now moment. It is all only energy. And no one being can ever be defined nor limited by energetic space, energy itself alone. Because the truth is, you are consciousness. You are consciousness that is now being given through your own awakening journey, giving to yourself through your own free will choice, the ability to choose which energies you will embody and emanate. Okay. Does that make sense? I don't always know, like, totally, but the filter gets out of the way.
It definitely does. Very, very metaphysical. And, you know, when we talk about frequency and energy, we also have to acknowledge that we're in these physical bodies. And you've talked about, or the collective has also talked about, the original divine blueprint of the body, and that we're going to be evolving into that, and also that future generations are already born with it. So I'd love to understand a little bit more about how that consciousness that we've been talking about is influencing then the physical body to return to its original blueprint.
Yeah. The original divine blueprint is coded in every human. And that original divine blueprint is the blueprint for, it could be called the Adam Kadmon body, right? It's the blueprint for the human being that does not include sickness, illness, lack, poverty, disease, decay, etc. So that blueprint, energetically, it's encoded in the DNA. It's dormant. It needs to be activated and awakened and reclaimed through free will choice and through energetic resonance. We have to be resonant with it, which is why awakening it and activating it from within us oftentimes requires frequency resonance, right? You have to get into an energetic space. You can't just do it with the brain, right? But as that starts to be reactivated and reawakened, each individual starts to restore, have the capacity to restore ourselves to our ideal and optimal states of health and well-being. And that doesn't mean just physically. That means emotionally, mentally, energetically, spiritually, you know, even in terms of relationally, you know, relationship to self, to others, to source, to money, to energy itself, etc. So that divine blueprint is in there, is in our DNA. It's one of the reasons, I mean, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but it's just DNA is one of the most important things that we energetically, that we possess within us, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's coded within us. It's waiting for us to reclaim through eons of time. Our DNA, there's just been so much, you know, DNA fuckery. You know what I mean? And a lot of interference from, yeah, I mean, you can call them negative star beings, or, you know, the negative alien agenda, or ancestors, or our own unconsciousness. I mean, there's a gazillion reasons why all that stuff has been messed with, but it's part of us reclaiming our right to align with our source. And because it's coded within us, no one can take it from us. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've also defined that darkness is just a contraction of energy and light is an expansion of energy. So when I think about darkness in this context with the physical body, for example, you know, we might witness, or we might go through an illness because there's a contraction there, meaning there must be some sort of darkness in the body in some way. Like right now, as we're speaking, my 7th rib is fractured because I had some weight come down on it in the gym. And it's so funny we're having this conversation because I've been repeating to myself, without having studied too much of your work before, I was repeating, I restore my divine blueprint. I restore my divine. I was just saying that. I was just saying it. And so I'm curious to know, with that contraction of energy and the darkness, how do you see that around our lives and what that's actually teaching us? Are we still needing to learn from darkness? Or is there another teacher that is going to be helping us much more?
Yeah. So darkness is pure potential. That's all it is. It's pure potential. And in the darkness, we tend to contract as beings who are conscious. There's contraction there because we're like, I can't see myself, my way. I don't know what's going on. Why is this happening to me? We tend to perceive ourselves through a contracted state or a contracted experience because there's a lack of light. There's a lack of consciousness, seemingly. There's a lack of awareness. So the darkness is pure potential, and we typically experience that state of pure potential through some kind of contracted experience, lacking clarity, lacking wisdom, lacking guidance, lacking knowledge, lacking whatever it is that's about to emerge. But rather than judging it as wrong or bad, which is typically what we do when we're in those states, it's up to us to start saying, what is in here for me that out of this can emerge, that can grow into something greater and or expand and or evolve either my consciousness, my energy, my vibration, or whatever gifts of consciousness I'm meant to claim or realize or bring into out of this state of being. So what we do is we go into the contraction, and when we're in the contraction, we're experiencing some form of difficulty or challenge or struggle or upset. And until we sort of get to a point where we're like, I've had enough of this contraction, and we make a free will choice, okay, something's got to get better, or somehow there's got to be something, that's when the expansion starts happening. Because we start realizing this cannot stay like this, right? And because of the way consciousness or reality is set up for us, we have this game of polarity going on here, where there's dark and there's light, there's contraction, there's expansion. And so rather than, even if you look at the state of the world, if you're seeing something in the state of the world or something in your personal reality, like any person, that they're feeling is a contracted state, problematic, then the job of consciousness that's working in and through us is to start looking for, how can this expand into something greater or something better, right? That's up to us as free will choice beings. So does that make sense?
Hello, beautiful family. Quick one today. I just wanted to take a moment to thank each and every one of you that have subscribed to this channel. Your subscription means more than you know. Even though it's free, what you're doing is you're empowering a whole channel to be able to do this every single day and continue showing up in the way that we can with all of our resources on hand. Thank you for contributing to the growth of this channel, for sharing it with the people that you love, for creating a conscious movement of individuals that are seeking the sovereignty and the divinity of their soul. This is why we're here. And if you haven't already and you're enjoying this content, I invite you now to look below on that little button that says subscribe and welcome you properly to this community. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being who you are and being pure love and radiating that with everyone that you see. Back to the episode. Yeah. And a lot of letting of that go is letting go of the old paradigm that you talked about and how that's ending in this moment, what we're going through as a collective. And I'm curious to know how your team has envisioned the new paradigm that is coming through for humanity and what you've received from there.
Well, let me first say, and we talked for a while before we started, so I don't remember if this was on recording or not, but we're not moving out of duality. Like you're still going to have a rose is still going to be different from, a tree, right? A maple tree is different from an oak tree. That's all duality. Duality doesn't go away. What we're shifting into beyond even unity, and I think this did come up, is this plurality, where we're just in recognition that all of it is part of this one source, and that while there's differentiation, what the differentiation is simply energy and vibration that we can either be in tune with or in vibrational, some form of vibrational polarity with. So when you ask that question, like, well, how does my team envision this? What really is the way that it's been taught to me is that it's a work in progress. Because, oh, and you had mentioned timelines before. That was meant to come through too. Because timelines, what timelines really are is simply, people refer to timelines as if it's periods of time. For some reason, people have linked that. But really what a timeline is a set of choices, or a choice to have some kind of experience. So a timeline is, I am vibrationally compatible with this experience, XYZ, and so I'm going to experience this through the lens of linear time. So let's say, we could use, a physical illness or a physical disease or a broken rib. I'm going to have this experience, and it's going to take some period of linear time for me to go through the experience, and therefore that's a timeline. But really, when you understand timeline as energetic vibration, then you start becoming more consciously aware that energetic vibration I'm not choosing. So therefore, I simply will choose not to align myself energetically with the experience. Now, how does one do that? Well, first of all, you don't buy into it. You recognize it's just energy. It is not mandatory. It is not required. You're a free will sovereign being who gets to choose. And this energy of this vibration, let's say broken rib, here's what it feels like here, some kind of contraction, pain, or suffering. Here's what it feels like here, free and liberated from it, right? And at the same time, you use your conscious, when we understand the power of intention, conscious free will and intention. It is my intention and desire to be fully freed and liberated from the experience associated with XYZ, right? So this is part of how we become conscious co-creators, because we start recognizing this timeline, so-called timeline, is an experience I'm either choosing or not choosing. And the way I'm choosing it is by being vibrationally compatible with it. The way I'm vibrationally compatible with it is I'm putting all my intention on it. I'm somehow maybe afraid of it, or worried about it, or concerned about it, or somehow I had a miscreation. I call that, my team calls it miscreation, where you put too much thought and too much emotion into it that misaligned you with that timeline, with that energetic experience. And as you become more consciously aware that your thoughts and your emotions, your attitude, your energy is all what puts you on a timeline in the first place, you start saying, I'm not even going to be on that. I'm going to energetically shift by putting all my focus, intention, desire, energy into an entirely different experience. It's all experiential. That's what timelines are. And so because humans, especially in the old paradigm, we've been so overly manipulated overall through, you know what the big ones are, right? I mean, the big ones, food and beverage, mass media, education system, big tech now, financial system. What am I missing? You know what they are, yeah, right? All those systems, they've been controlled, dominated, and manipulated. And so through that old paradigm, it's not even about blaming. We were there for that experience. There's no wrongness. We participated in it unconsciously for experience, for growth, for evolution, for exploration. Now we're like, okay, that whole vibratory state is just not part of the energetic I want to participate in, nor does Gaia. So I'm elevating up out of that, and whatever that was, I'm just blessing it and shifting focus, intention, and energy to have different experience. Yeah? It seems so simple, right? Yeah, and to me, it is actually pretty simple.
It is. I mean, in the core, it's the choice that we're making and what experience that will bring through. And one choice that humanity did make as a collective that came through you in a channeling was humans requested our presence. And I'm sure that they were referring to the presence of the team that you've gathered around you in the non-physical, the star family, and they requested our presence. So I'm wondering if we can bring in through the collective to ask some of those questions around the choices that we're making right now and what they see from the purview, where they're at, and maybe, you called it misdirection, how they can sort of help us, miscreation, and then recreate, let's say, the right timeline and the right choices that would lead us to this new paradigm that we've been touching on.
Yeah, I mean, you can just ask away. Whoever's meant to come through will come, right? You could just ask any question.
Yeah. So I guess the easy one would be, what are humans choosing the most right now? And how is that creating the experiences that we're having?
Good. So many beings stepping forward as a collective, right? They always come together as a collective. And yes, there are star family races present. And we will speak more in a more specific way as we progress here, for we have much to share and contribute. However, for this time, we will unify as a greater collective, sharing here in response to the question and the inquiry. What are humans choosing now? Understand that humans overall are choosing change. Overall, as a collective, humans are aware that they are disproportionately dissatisfied overall with the state of their experiences as a collective of humans on Earth. There has been great dissatisfaction overall. And there has been awareness in a conscious way through the collective that they are desiring change. Most humans are still relatively unaware of how they can create the change that they desire. But they are asking for it. Now, overlapping with this, most humans are also choosing that they would like something better. Again, most of the humans in your physical earthly reality are not necessarily aware of what that better thing is. They just know that there is and must be something better. So this is pervasive through your human reality. Now, in addition to this, most humans unconsciously are also very much still self-sabotaging. And this happens even with some of the most progressed humans, for they are learning even among the most progressed humans. And when we say the word progressed, we are not saying this from the perspective of better or worse. We are simply saying that all humans are progressing as souls in their own unique way, in their own unique path. There is no better or worse. But those who are more progressed in the sense that they have mastered many earthly human experiences and do not need to repeat those earthly human experiences, and they have somehow integrated some forms of higher consciousness or purer consciousness into their earthly reality. So this is what we mean when we say progressed. Even very progressed humans are still doing what you referred to earlier, that we have referred to often, miscreating. So why does one miscreate, and how is this interfering, in other words, self-sabotaging or sabotaging their experience? It is because they are not yet fully aware of their own wounds and traumas that they are working on as unique souls with unique soul agendas. And through their own inner exploration, they are leveling up to new degrees of mastery. However, they are sometimes miscreating. And this is when a trauma or a wound or a pattern interferes or gets in the way, but not necessarily for wrongness, but rather so that human can progress into new levels of mastery. So this is where humans are right now. This is what humans are choosing. You see, they are wanting change. They are wanting something better, but they are also very much still energetically self-sabotaging, for they have not come into, for the most part, as a collective, enough consciousness yet to recognize that not only are their thoughts and their beliefs and their belief systems and their perspectives and their attitudes and their emotions, they recognize that these are conscious aspects of creation. And yet they are not fully conscious to the degree that they see how those things may be interfering, creating self-sabotaging experiences. However, through those self-sabotaging experiences, they are leveling up Do you see? This is what is going on for most humans on your earth.
What do you foresee are going to be the teachings that the future generations will have for the progression of consciousness that would affect maybe the generations that are having those issues with self-sabotage and miscreation?
Yes. First and foremost, we understand there are multiple, we'll put these into categories that all humans are in some way, shape, or form needing to address and identify. First and foremost, the unhealed traumas that all humans carry. There is not but one human on the face of your earth that is not in some way, shape, or form addressing some form of personal trauma from this and other lifetimes. These unhealed traumas are here in their earthly experience for them to resolve. The one whose voice box is being utilized often refers to these as soul agendas. Some people refer to them as contracts, although we would say that is too limiting of a word. Overall, they are agendas or choices that the soul made prior to incarnation to address, to heal, to resolve, so that they can become a greater, more expanded version of themselves. So this is the first category. All humans in the years, this has already begun. You are already seeing it happening. It is already unfolding, very early stages, but this will expand exponentially. It will no longer be, and it already is not, it will no longer be considered abnormal to be addressing core wounds and traumas. And these traumas, as we have stated, are not only in the unconscious part of one's awareness, one's consciousness, but they are on the surface level too, for they are all the ways beings engage in their physical reality, all the ways they interact, all the ways they speak and engage, everything you do, it is part of that. Now, the second category we would like to expand on, as you ask, where do we see Earth and humans going, is beyond the healing and the resolving of trauma, that all humans will begin, the ones who choose to stay, will begin to embrace more conscious awareness of themselves as spiritual, energetic beings who have the capacity to consciously create and co-create their reality through the expansion of their consciousness, as they understand that not only does their mental plane, their emotional plane, their energetic plane, and their spiritual plane contribute to and collaborate within and through them, but so do, as we have stated, their thoughts, their beliefs, their belief systems, their emotions, their energetic fields, their attitudes, etc., all contribute to the co-creation of the reality they experience. So when you ask, going back to your question, what do we see as the future for humanity? We see this as an important and significant part, because as humans become more conscious of your role as co-creators, you will also all over time step into greater degrees of mastery so that you can co-create together into the earth paradigm, the new reality that you desire that is most to your liking. You see, your free will is expanding now. And at the same time, as your free will expands, you are all recognizing that the highest truth is that your free will is for the will of God or source or creator or the divine to flow through you, for that is the best will there can be. And when we say best, what we mean is the most benevolent, best experience that you can allow yourself to have. See? So this is the second category. We will add one more category for now that we see evolving over time, and that is more and more service and contribution, not just in a way that you are serving and contributing from the need to make difference or change, but through the joy of contribution, through the joy of sharing, through the joy and the expansion. For contribution is the fastest road to joy. And ultimately, as more and more beings recognize that their greatest fulfillment comes through the joy of contribution, more and more beings will evolve in this way. So let us put this together now. As humans heal and resolve their traumas, They will come into greater levels of consciousness. As they become more conscious, they will be recognizing their role as conscious creators through all the levels and layers of who they are and what they embody. And as they do this, they will also recognize that their greatest fulfillment is to bring forward that which is their greatest passion, their greatest joy, to contribute that into the world, and more of that will expand. So this is the evolution we see. As this happens, it has not been stated overtly, but this is a natural byproduct as well. More and more of your greatest potentials will be revealed to you, all humans, and your greatest potentials come as you unify more and more with your source. In other words, all of your extrasensory, telepathic gifts, all of your abilities to be highly intuitive, highly advanced beings, utilizing more of your brain capacity in conscious ways, more of your heart capacity in conscious ways, more of your physicality in conscious ways, and more of the multidimensional aspects of who you are. Let us just take for just a brief moment to elaborate on this. The multidimensional aspects of who you are up until this time have been limited to this perspective that you are physical bodies. But you are so much greater than this. For, like the Russian tea doll example you have likely been aware of or made aware of in the past, you are energetic orb that is greater than layers and layers of orb that expand greater than the size of perhaps a house or even a 2-story house, likely larger than 55 feet in diameter for most of you. So you see, you are energetic beings, layers and layers of frequencies. And each of these frequencies are like planes of consciousness where different experiences take place. The physical is simply one plane of consciousness. Beyond that, you have your emotional. Beyond that, you have your mental. Beyond that, there is energetic, there is auric, there is light body, there are ascension body. There is so many layers of consciousness that go beyond 12 dimensions of consciousness. And you are expanding into all of these. This will happen over time. This is what we see for your future. As this does, the future of Earth and humanity improves dramatically in the years ahead.
When you mentioned that there will be those who choose to stay, what do you feel will determine that decision of those who choose to stay and those who choose to maybe leave somewhere else?
Good. This is an interesting question here. First, let us reassure you, there is never an accident. There are two things that are never, ever by accident. In fact, universal laws play a great role here. Law of synchronicity being one of them, which is inclusive of what you would call divine timing. These two things are never an accident. The first is the moment of birth, and the second is the moment of death, physical death. So those who choose to exit this paradigm will choose it either consciously or unconsciously at this point, though in your future it will become more and more conscious. They will choose it because they feel as a soul evolving that they are complete with this earthly, physical, embodied experience that they are having in the particular body they embody. So on a soul level or on a conscious, fully conscious level, they have decided that they are complete with the experience associated with this unique physical embodiment. And as they are complete, they exit the physical form, never by accident, always by choice, consciously and unconsciously. And then they choose to progress and move on into some other experience that will allow them to continue their exploration and evolution. Now, with that said, those who choose to stay will be those who find for some reason the continuation of their growth, their evolution, is progressing them in ways that they choose and desire. Those who choose to leave will feel complete. Overall, it can also be said that there must be vibrational resonance, for the earth has chosen. And as her vibration shifts, she will require the beings who continue to inhabit on her physical form to be vibrationally compatible with her. So vibrational resonance will, of course, play a significant role. Have we addressed this question for you appropriately? We believe we have.
Yes, you have. And how would a soul then know that it's complete with this earthly experience?
There are many reasons why a soul knows that they are complete. In most cases, a soul says, I'm ready. And this happens oftentimes with people who have, in your experience, aged, completed an aging process. Although aging will not be a requirement as you move forward and progress as humans evolve, this will become less and less a requirement of your earthly experience. Nonetheless, one knows they are complete because they choose it. They know it. We offer this as, let us find the right word. We offer this as a source of reassurance for many humans. You cannot leave before you are ready. This is also generally true for your animal kingdom as well, your animal family members. One does not leave before they are ready. We would like to use the example of the one whose voice box is being utilized. During the year of 2020, when there was massive outbreak of what was known as a virus, there were many beings who were fearful, in great fear, that they might somehow leave the physical earthly experience due to this virus. The one whose voice box is being utilized was told immediately, this is not the agenda, this is not the plan for you. Your role is to demonstrate how to live in this experience in the best ways possible, and to demonstrate how to be immune and impervious to this, and to share the codes associated with this so that others can live this way too. Now, we are explaining this for a very specific reason. When a soul knows, and you all know this if you allow yourself to, that you have something to offer, to contribute, to learn, to expand into, to evolve into, to explore. You cannot leave. You are not ready. You see? No one can go by accident. This does not happen. And no one will go before they're ready unless they are in some way choosing it. Now, let us just slightly, because we hear it in the field, address this topic of suicide when someone goes deliberately, on purpose, or even what could be called a mercy killing or a choice to die with dignity, for example. When someone is choosing in that way, they are choosing to exit either through extreme pain or because they feel they are done. This is still a choice. Now, this choice can also be addressed differently. You see, there are exit windows, but it is never an accident. It is always a choice. I hope this has been helpful. Does that address it? I'm stepping a little bit more in because my brain is in a very altered state when this happens, and I'm not following the flow. Like, I'm aware and conscious because I'm just becoming resonant with my team. Like, I call them my team, but the collective includes ascended masters and angels who are lots of beings' teams. They're not just my collective. I'm part of this collective when I vibrationally attune and align with them. And so my brain is just a passenger. I don't really know, like, I'm not analyzing or paying attention. So then when I come out, I'm like, was that what was needed? I don't even know. Like, that's what came through, right?
I'm following along.
Okay, good.
Just fine. I'm
Okay.
I'm like in it, because they were talking about, the exit points and how probably as well in 2020 there was more exit points available for people. And just like there are exit points, do you feel there are also entry points where some souls will come in at specific years or moments in time that could progress or accelerate this expansion that we've been talking about?
Yeah, this is the same thing. There's more here. They're going to say, wait, I just want to listen to that. But there's entry points are this, it's the same thing. So you had a massive amount of entry points leading up to and building up to 2020. The population was increasing in the year. This is coming through, but my filter's still slightly here. So I'd like to get a little more out of the way. But what they're saying is you're going to start to see in the years ahead, not right away, but likely within the next 2 censuses, that the population begins to decrease. And this is because as souls are becoming more fulfilled, in many cases, they will not look to reproduce, to add to their fulfillment. And moreover, this also is compatible with allowing the earth more spaciousness for healing. That said, that was a significant entry period of time where the population was building. We are also going to venture into some unknown territory for those who are willing. There are beings who have, in a sense, embodied without the full soul unification with Source. One could call these disembodied souls. They are beings who are more or less not fully inhabited in their bodies. This will cease as well. For as fewer humans are choosing to multiply through reproductive means, there will be less and less of that sort of occurrence.
How dramatic would this population decrease look like for us?
Over time, it will be quite significant over time. But know this, it will not be. We would like to define this conversation, this topic, or better clarify on this conversation about apocalypse or about these mass extinction ideas. This is not what is meant for humanity. This is not part of the plan for lighted creation. What is part of the plan is an organic completion of the experiences of this old paradigm. And as that completion happens, fewer beings who have progressed will choose to come back to this earthly reality. And those beings who have not progressed will go to other places in time and space. We have briefly touched upon this. So the apocalyptic concept or mass extinction is rather a choice that beings make to inhabit elsewhere that is more harmonious with their learning. So that is to say that the beings who do not necessarily make the most progress in their evolutionary journey may choose to inhabit elsewhere on other planets. In addition, there will be more and more interaction in years ahead with other planetary bodies and beings, star family races identified in this subcollective, who are inviting humans to return to their original home star, their original home star planet. And as those beings do, that will also lead to decreases in population as you know it on Earth. So there's no apocalypse other than a mass awakening. There's no massive end of life scenarios, mass extinction events, other than what you have already witnessed in most cases, you have already witnessed some degree of this. You have, of course, 2020 being a good example, other experiences where there are mass earth changes, fires, droughts, waters, etc., floods, etc. These things are happening largely because of the shifting of the poles on the physical plane and the shifting of consciousness and Earth herself, healing herself, as well as Earth moving in different places in the galaxy where beings are being united with other planetary bodies. Nonetheless, we are reassuring you, mass extinction is not part of the plan for lighted creation, mass extinction as you define it. It is simply the natural progression and evolution of beings transitioning, choosing other experiences, and Earth herself choosing her direction and path as it happens organically and naturally. You see?
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that reassurance. And I'd love to switch gears for just a moment on speaking of communities, because part of that population increase for the species led to the creation of these huge cities such as New York, the Londons, the now Dubais, and the way that we lived in community changed quite a lot from where we began as, hunter-gatherers and tribes. So if we're going in through a population decrease, how do you feel the communities will need to shift again in the new paradigm with this progression of consciousness? How will communities behave in this new iteration of what we're creating?
It is likely, and this is largely engaging the free will choice. One must always allow for free will choice, for as consciousness expands, free will choice is always a factor. Recognize this. As cities have grown, the cities are simply humans' desires for all of the experiences that cities offer, that large populated places provide. And for many humans, this choice will continue. However, what you will likely notice is an equal amount of humans choosing and desiring more spaciousness, especially as humans progress. So there will also be more and more spaciousness created. Earth herself will expand to allow for more spaciousness. Some of this is happening already. You may not necessarily see it or realize it yet. So the cities themselves will likely over time, become less populated, although more smaller cities will come into more fruition. In other words, more populations will expand into other areas that allow smaller cities to develop and larger cities to reduce in size over time, not overnight. Because people will seek more expansion, more spaciousness. At the same time, let it be known, we are not denying that there is still a so-called dark agenda at play, which is becoming more and more weakened. And that dark agenda seeks to control, dominate, and manipulate. And one of its strengths is in hoarding people into small places where they can be most easily controlled, dominated, and manipulated through various methods. This pattern will also continue over time until and as more beings awaken and choose more spaciousness. So the two will happen symbiotically as we see it, and will continue this progress that you are already witness to.
What choices dissipate the dark agendas that you talked about?
The choice to become conscious and the choice for truth. Above all, the choice for truth, divine truth, the development of divine discernment. You see, for if humans truly desired truth, they could never be lied to by a false authority claiming dominion over them, forcing them or attempting to force them to do anything. They also would never utilize the words, "I had no choice," for this is simply never the case. You live in a free will reality. You just did not know how to use, we say you, but we mean humans in general. You just did not know how to use your free will choice to provide yourself with another choice other than the one you perceived that was likely coming from a false authority attempting to control, dominate, manipulate, that provided you no other choice. You see, as you align with your source, you will recognize the law of free will choice. As you choose sovereignty, as you choose truth, as you develop discernment, you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt this absolute fundamental truth. You will always have choice. Choice will never be taken away from you. That is not the agenda of the light. And that simply is not absolute truth. So what beckons you then in the desire for truth is to know that you will always have choice, and that in so becoming more aligned with your free will choice, willing to know truth, you can explore the potentials of what else is possible for you when you open up to the reality that the divine will always provide you other choices if you seek another choice other than the one or none you have been given. You see? So we must emphasize this further. The willingness to know truth is one of the most important things you can ask for on your earth. Too many people up until now, and this is coming from your question, which was which was along the lines of the evolution of consciousness. This was what you were inquiring about. How will people choose when they are given no choice? We know that there is a paradigm that you are breaking free from where you were given little to no choice. And until you are willing to recognize that divine truth is required for you to know that you have infinite choices and infinite potentials, and that you can never be controlled or dominated or manipulated by a false authority. As you develop your divine discernment, you will recognize through that expansion, through the willingness to know truth, through the willingness to understand and to know and embody divine truth, that you will always have choice. You will be able to choose more freely with your own sovereignty, choices that are more to your liking and more desirable to you. Yes, here we go. This is done.
What a powerful message to end on, collective. Thank you so much. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was really
feel?
interesting. I think there was a couple moments there where I was like, I didn't know. There's so many conversations going on. And when a channel is happening, it's like it has to unify as one collective voice to come through. And there was a certain point where my brain interfered a little bit, like, where are you going with this? What's going on? I saw watch myself interfere, and I had to get out of the way again, right? It's the channeling experience is really fascinating. It's a really fascinating thing because it's like happening at such a different brainwave frequency that and it's always like, there's waves and patterns, different beings coming in, sharing. Anyway, that was a very interesting experience for me.
Was there like a primary spokesperson in that channeling? Because I know the collective is a conglomeration of different beings that have come through. So do you think there is a spokesperson there in that message at all?
Well, here's the thing that I know with working with the collective that I am part of. I have worked now for so long on refining this that I am only willing to allow beings who unify with this intention that we serve the light, which includes the plan for lighted creation, which is the agenda of the light that we've been talking about. So I have seen over time, sometimes, especially when I'm in groups, like other beings will try to sometimes squeak in, and I have to be like, who are you? This is part of working with the non-physical. Who are you? Who do you represent? I teach this in all my classes. Who are you? Who do you represent? How do you identify? What is your frequency? And that's not through the brain. It's like an experience. It's an awareness. So I know if someone's not serving the light, I'm not interested. And understand, again, it's important to say light's not good or bad. It's just the expansion of consciousness and part of what I call God's plan for lighted creation. So when you're asking who's speaking, it's the collective that's responding to the question that's asked. When I'm on a podcast, it has to be fast. But if I'm in like a big group and I've got a 3-hour event, a lot of times they'll more specifically identify. It'll be like, this is Mother Mary or this is Mary Magdalene. But more often than not, it's like they come together really fast. It's a collective that's here to respond to this appropriate way to this specific question. Does that make sense?
That's fascinating.
But when there's interference, sometimes I'm like, okay. And I've had this even with students, like in classes or on my retreats, or, because I can channel other people's higher self or their team as well. Like all I have to know is like the aspect of consciousness that's coming through is a frequency that's aligned with the light, right? Serving the light. So I've had some beings over time, they'll try to come in and squeak in, and I'm like, sorry. No, not allowing that. In fact, and I know we're done, but because you're giving me this spaciousness to share this, when I started in the earliest days of my journey, I had a lot of beings who would come to me and be like, will you let us come through? Will you let us come through and speak through you? You're meant to be a channel. And I'd be like, no, you're not hijacking my body. And I don't even know who you are. So no, I'm not giving up my free will so you can just come take over. Because that's like, that's like old paradigm channeling in a sense. A person basically, that's like trance channeling. They step out of their body and then someone else comes in and speaks through them. And that was never okay with me. So it took a lot of years of meeting beings who would identify, and I'd be like, who are you? What's your frequency? What's your agenda? What are you here for? And as I cultivated that ability over time, then I'd be like, all right, well, what do you want to share? And I just like allow it to transmit. It's a different kind of channeling. It's a merging. It's not a trance channeling.
Yeah.
And I think it's the next wave of channeling personally, because I don't think we're really truly meant to give up our sovereign right to our physical form. But, that's a free will choice that people can make of how they're going to allow information to come through them. And everyone has that choice, right?
Yeah. And before going into we have this final segment called the final trio. There's some little questions at the end, but we were talking pre-record, when we were just having a chat, and you brought up the role of the ego, and you wanted to go a little bit deeper into the ego. And I love
this conversation.
Give some space for you to, bring that to the surface.
I just am going to allow this to be channeled through me because I don't. Okay, so we're going to have Master Jesus come through. And other ascended masters with Lord Melchizedek, other masters with him. Beloveds, for far too long you have believed in this concept of the ego. You have been trained in it, taught in it, believed it. You attach to it. You own it, and you believe it is you. And let us state here now, this is old teachings. It is highly inaccurate. You do not have an ego. We are pausing here to make the point. You do not have an ego. There is nowhere in the brain that an ego can be found. You have a personality self. Does not a master, an ascended master, have a personality? Does not a divine goddess, who is also by right an ascended master, the saints, the siddhas, the buddhas, the taras of light, we all have personalities. Yes, this is not the same thing as an ego. What you have defined as your ego is nothing more than energetic structure and inertia. Start to reclaim your power over the inertia that has claimed you, because it is not yours. Inertia is that which has very largely incorporated itself in and through the human identity that humans call their own ego. And by owning it, it owns you. And yet this is not the truth. Far from it. For you are so much more than the inertia you have identified yourself as. You are consciousness, this was stated earlier. And as consciousness, no inertia, no energetic substance can ever define you. So do not allow it to. Do not believe those old teachings that you have an ego. It was simply a way for earlier teachers to help beings like yourselves to understand that there is an aspect of you that is greater than this thing identified as ego, that etches God out. And we can agree with this. We can agree and understand. But we simply want you to understand that you are so much more and so much greater than any form of egoic, energetic inertia, energetic, non-physical matter that has claimed dominion over you, and through teachings you have owned, and yet it is not the truth of who you are. So as you disidentify from the ego and label it for what it truly is, inertia, non-physical, energetic matter, you free yourself from it so much quicker and easier and more gracefully. You liberate yourself from the very structure that has kept you imprisoned because for so long you owned it and believed it was yours. We hope this has been helpful.
Thank you, Master Yeshua, and all the other ascended beings that came through there. The energy was, wow. I'm still feeling it, still in it. Lori, we'll end with a segment that we told you, the final trio. And before that, I would love to just hold the space to let the audience know where they can find you, if they're new to your work, or where they can go even deeper with you if they already know about you. What are you currently, what's going on in the Lori Spagna world right now? What would you send people to connect with you?
Yeah, well, they can go to my website, which is my name, Lori Spagna, Lorispagna. They can get gifted DNA activation. That's one I would really do, really important. It includes, you'll get like some of those codes we talked about. That's at lorispagna.com/free gifts/DNA. They can learn more about their Indigo Family Tribe connection through lorispagna.com/free gifts/starseed. And there's really rich content there. It's not just like a little PDF. It's good stuff. And then if you're an animal lover, we didn't talk too much about that, but you can go to lorispagna.com/free gifts/animals to develop your capacity to communicate with and help and support animals in their mission. There's lots there. There's tons of stuff once you get in the community. There's like an energy healing support group that you could be part of. And of course, I have a podcast too. It's not like yours, but it's a little podcast, and it's at The Awakened Elevated Human. So, by the way, I will say this though. I would highly recommend people go to the YouTube, Lori Spagna YouTube, and get those codes of immunity and imperviousness activated. They're free on YouTube. And there's also codes of freedom and liberation. Go activate them. They're really good.
I'll do those today, and we'll include everything that you mentioned. Let's heal this rib, huh? Like let's let's get past this, you know. Beautiful. And we'll link everything down in the show notes in the description. And for the final trio, they're just little questions that we like to ask at the end. The first two are personalized to the guest, and the last one we ask at the very end of every show. So the first one is, what do you believe is the most underused spiritual gift that we all carry but rarely claim?
Consciousness. Okay, the most underutilized spiritual tool, the ability to breathe and be still and drop into center core of being.
Beautiful.
Yeah. To be in the center core of being, which I don't think most people even necessarily know what that is. Yeah. That's what I would say.
We'll invite them to explore that feeling. The second question, what do you think is the most courageous thing a soul can do during this earthly lifetime?
Sign up for massive growth and evolution. It's the soul that signs up for the massive amount of growth that typically has some of the most challenging stretch. Like, it's not an easy life. It's not an easy path. It's not the vacation lifetime. Mm-hmm. It's not the path of fame and fortune, typically, although it could be, but rarely it's that. It's usually the people you don't really meet who are doing the behind the scenes work, inner work, transformational work. That's probably the most courageous thing. And it doesn't look pretty to other people. Typically, it's the people who are really, really progressed and at the same time really struggling for growth and transformation, and are typically at the same time really, I think I'm describing myself here, but so many of us who really signed up for really deep, big work. And yet it's not stuff that can be learned through a book, or there's not a lot of people in the physical world who can necessarily help them through that. It's self-growth, self-discovery, self-exploration, and then to bring it forward. I think that's really courageous. I really do.
And I think you're also describing the people in our communities listening to this show. So
for sure.
Very courageous of all of you guys, and we honor you for that. And
yeah.
this last question that we ask at the end of every show is called the time capsule question. It requires us to travel a little bit out into the future, around 15 to 20 years down the line. I chose out those time frames because I believe that's going to be a time in history when the young generations of today are going to be stepping more into leadership positions around the world. And just like any great leader that ever came through, you know, we're thinking the Gandhis, the Martin Luther Kings, they had great mentors, great access to wisdom, great teachings that came before them, and things that were left behind to them to be able to be the leaders that they were and that they are. And you had the opportunity to leave behind a time capsule that these young generations of today will open a few years down the line. And when they open your time capsule, they'll be equipped with whatever you want to leave behind. It can be something physical, non-physical, whatever your imagination can put into the time capsule. But knowing that when they open it, they'll receive whatever you want to leave to allow them to be the leaders of the golden age and of this new paradigm. What would you leave behind as your legacy?
Wow. I guess it would be like the immediate ability to instantly align with the divine energetically, to unify with the infinite that is within us all. Because really, it's such an easy practice. And once it's like, I think we're all learning it. I think that's what's happening here anyway. But 15 years from now, for somebody to just instantaneously come into that space where we're in just so much oneness with all that is, which is like, it is a kind of like a bliss state, but it's not limited to that because it's just so much more than that. Like that ability to just be that now. If I could leave that, that's what I would. Because it's so good. It's so good. It's so fulfilling and rewarding and expansive, and all the things we're searching for, all of the things that we're looking for in the external world are within us. It's really true. And even though we need one another, we do. We're meant to need one another. I would just, if I could leave that in a time capsule, which maybe it's that energy, frequency, vibration of being there, of instant enlightenment or instant unification with source, oneness, and all that is. So maybe it's energy, but it's consciousness. That's what I would leave. And I don't even know if you can like put that in a teaching. You can put it in a teaching. I teach it, but in a time capsule, would you put it in teaching, or would you just put it as a divine download? I think I just put it as a divine download. Like, open it up, instant enlightenment. There it is.
Instant enlightenment. Open up.
That would be fun, right? If you could,
Beautiful.
It's available to us. It's here.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful words, and what a gift that you would leave behind. Lori, thank you so much for your authenticity, the light that you shine, for teaching us that we are those divine beings that have so much great potentials ahead of us. And thank you just for the authenticity with which you do your work and the powerful energy that you bring through. We'll call this volume 1 because we're going to have to come do this many, many more times. Wow, but from the heart, thank you so much for doing this and being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Emilio, for having me. It's really been an honor and a pleasure.
Of course. Thank you.